What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I'm your host, Chris. Thank you guys so much for your support. These last couple guests have been awesome. Today's special guest is an Army veteran. He served in the Army and was a VA Raider, and he is the founder of the Seven Principles Group. Please help me welcome Chaz Sampson. Chaz, how you doing, my friend?
Chris, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on your show, man. Super
Yeah,
happy to have this conversation.
thank you for coming on, man. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure, man.
Just want to start off by saying, thank you for your service. I know it's not said nearly enough as I feel like it should. So, thank you for your service. I think all military men and women are somebody to be admired. So, thank you for your service, man. Of
My pleasure, man. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging.
course. So let's start with your journey here, going into the company that you found for veterans. What inspired you to start the Seven Principles Group, and how did your own experience as a veteran shape that vision?
Yeah, I'm a finance guy by trade, and I never had a vision to really serve veterans in this capacity. I was a raider at the VA in Washington, D.C., and I made the final decisions on so many cases across the country where I saw men and women messing their cases up. Cases that would have been, let's say, granted 100% permanent total were decreased. Cases that could have had a positive outcome had a negative outcome, either because they weren't done properly or they weren't competent in regards to what we look at as far as raters to make our decision. And so how it started, Chris, is I started helping law firms and NGOs with their caseloads. And that inspired me to help a little bit more because there's still a blockade of just knowledge between a lot of the folks in this industry and what we do as raters. Raters, we have a very high level of competency about what will work on a case. And so that inspired me to help people out. And how it really started is I left the VA and I went to the Pentagon. I was with DOD, with Department of Air Force, with AFDW actually, out of what's it, Joint Base? Oh, I forgot the Joint Base. But it's in Maryland. It slips my mind. But I was under the Pentagon, and a lot of those men and women actually were asking for my help too because they were looking to get their VA claim done. And so I helped one, and you know how it is in the veteran community. You help one, you help in 100. So word travels pretty quick. And from there, Chris, I was overwhelmed, and I had to figure out whether I want to do this as a business or whether I wanted to actually just continue my federal employment. And for 1 year, I did it for free for veterans all across the country. The only way you found out about me is somebody told you about me, either a law firm or NGO or a peer-to-peer relationship. And honestly, I got overwhelmed, Chris. I never wanted to do it as a business, but I got overwhelmed and I couldn't tell veterans no. But I also had to make sure I took care of my health and, pay my mortgage and stuff like that. And yeah, and now here we are 11 years, blossomed to this magnificent company that are doing our little small part in the world to make it a little bit better for veterans and military. So that's the long story of a short answer, if you will.
Yeah. And that's got to be some fulfilling work to help as many people as you helped. And like you said, starting out, you did it for free, and it was just kind
Yeah.
of like you want to help people, but then you started realizing I want to, help myself too. I can't pour from an empty cup, so I totally get that.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point of burnout for you before you decided to transition over to the business part of it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, at the VA, well, I give you two burnouts. I give you the burnout before I was an employer and the burnout as an employer. If you don't mind, I think listeners may find value in both
Yeah.
because I'm sure some listeners are considering getting into entrepreneurship, starting a business, and they're weighing the pros versus the cons. And hopefully, I can do my small part in helping them make a decision. So, while I was a federal employee, there was a lot of burnout because I was moonlighting. I was doing two things at one time. I was running one business or basically running one service and actually meeting the needs of Americans across the country in my small capacity at the VA and also DOD. And so, yes, there was a lot of burnout. I would I worked the 0700 hours work shift to like the 1500. And then from about 5 p.m. until whenever the work was done, I worked the seven principal side or the VA claim side. And so I was burning midnight oil often. But the cool thing is that I was young. So that was what went in my favor. I was like 27, 28. So I had a lot of energy, but I still was getting burnt out. I was missing days from work. I took a lot of sick leave, a lot of annual leave. I would juggle sometimes my priorities during lunchtime with the outside business and also doing work daytime during business hours for my federal employment.
Right.
And it was a lot, Chris. And so I had to make a mental decision whether I wanted to continue to do it or not. I was getting mentally beat up. I wasn't there for my families I needed to be. And when I say wasn't there, I wasn't mentally there. I was physically there, but not mentally there. And then on the entrepreneurship side, it was even worse because I had wanted to close the doors of the company 3 different times. I actually sent an email out to all of our clients back in 2018 and said, "Look, I'm thinking other avenues. I can easily go on Wall Street and make $2 million a year, trading derivatives and doing fund management, private equity stuff, and make a lot of money, have a lot more fun. But I'm trying to get an idea where I want to be in life. I had just ran for mayor. I was 30 years old, 31 years old." And I said, you know what? I want to give this, I want to take a break. And these clients, Chris, were like, yeah, your mental health is important. Take a break. We'll be here when you come back. I said, no, I'm thinking about actually closing the doors. Like,
Right.
we're out of business. Like, we're permanently closed. I'm doing something else. And I never forget, I had a client, his name was Sidney Epps. He came to my office. This guy's like 6'8", 6'9". He lives in North Carolina. He's amazing, amazing guy. I did his case for him. We got him obviously great results. He loved it. Came to the office and gave me so much inspiration on how many veterans are dependent on folks like myself to have this type of skill set to do this work. And so that kept me going. And then I wanted to close doors again. And then I just couldn't tell veterans no, man. So I buckled down. I started reading this book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish on how to implement programs and processes in the business to employ the people and how to find talent. And I just been at it since then. So yeah, the burnout was real. Um, I did go through the VA for mental health care. It really wasn't what I needed specifically. I needed more like career coaching, executive leadership type mental health training. So I went through that and that helped me kind of understand like God has put me in this position. And I'm sorry if anybody's offended.
Oh no,
I
it's
don't
okay.
want to, yep, I don't want to offend anyone's, religious choices. But for me, I believe in God. So God put me in a position where I ended up going through my church and going through all these resources and figuring out, and it just got better. It got better and better. I overcame it. I prayed. I fasted as well. I started dieting, exercising a little bit better. And all those little small things between my diet, my exercise, my sleep patterns, my ability to say, that can wait till tomorrow. I'm an Army guy, so it's like, get it done right now today.
Yeah.
Nothing can wait till tomorrow. So understand that it will wait till tomorrow. It won't hurt us. And that's what I started to practice. And it's been a blessing over the last now 11 years. But since then, about maybe 7 years ago, give or take.
Yeah. And it's burnout's something that not a lot of people are comfortable with talking about in this community,
Yeah,
especially the mental health community, right? And
absolutely.
one specific example I can give you is I was volunteering for the suicide text line,
Hmm.
and I work usually on my work weekdays like 9 to 6 p.m. And then I would work overnights, so like 12 to 4 in the morning. I would do the text line, and after my brother passed away, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
it was just too much. And I recently just took a break from recording and scheduling guests, as you know, um,
Hmm.
and I almost didn't come back. And I was telling somebody I recorded with yesterday, I almost didn't come back because I
Wow.
felt like I felt so overwhelmed, and that's why I took a break. And then I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm okay where I was at. It'd be fine if I don't come back. And when I started recording yesterday, I'm like, you know what? I made the right decision in coming back. Um,
That's your purpose.
yeah, yeah,
You'd be
and
surprised, Chris, how the things that you're doing, how the listener, you're motivating them to keep going as well. Like, bravo to you, brother. I know I'm the guest, but like, let's give a round of applause for that because that's huge. So I want to know what was your momentum? What momentum did you use, and what invigorated you to say, you know what, I'm gonna come and do that show, and I'm gonna keep pushing forward. What was that moment for you?
my motivation's my brother.
Wow.
He's the reason I started the podcast, and the voiceless part of my podcast is for the people that are no longer here. And
Mm.
being able to give people like yourself and so many others that voice to share what you guys are doing because
Yeah.
he helped me find my voice, and the willpower of wanting to come back and hearing so many other stories and hearing all the walks of life that I've already met and meeting you today and just hearing the journey that you've overcome. I feel like just as humans, we're all so naive to the fact of how much we take everything for granted, and
Amen. Yeah.
once you meet that one person in your life, or once you have that one conversation, it completely changes your mind and everything. No matter what age, no matter what your hierarchy is on that financial chart,
Yep.
it's incredible, really.
Absolutely is. It certainly is. I had that same epiphany with Sydney Epps. So it's crazy that, you got it from your brother. I got it from Sydney Epps. And I was just like, this guy's a client paying me for my services. And, for me in my mind, so I'm thinking he doesn't care about what I have going on. I'm some CEO of a company. Who cares, right? But for him to say, look, I don't care what your, like you said, your hierarchy financially is, who you are in the world. I see you for who you are as a person. You're a good dude. And here's how I can help. So yeah, kudos to you, brother. I'm so happy that you kept into it, because even our conversation now, I don't have these kind of conversations very often, which is why I love, being a guest and doing my small part on podcasts that are big like this, because it helps me, one, stay grounded as a person, but it secondly helps me think outside the box of what my normal day to day. My normal day to day, dude, is like, what's going with the Fed rate? What's mortgage-backed securities? What's going on with, the money in the world, and what's going on with our employees? But having these kind of conversations gives me more hope to keep pushing on. So kudos to you, brother. Like, yeah, you're killing it, man.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Um,
Absolutely.
can you tell us, like, where was the pivotal moment that you felt that the VA system needed reform? Like, what was the turning point for you?
Presumptives. So, and this was under this well before I even got out the military. I knew that there was going to be problems, right? Whenever, and this is another thing, right? A lot of people, they look at the federal government, but they fail to understand that the federal government is people. It's
Yeah,
just people that are, have the power to make a decision, and their decision is binded and protected, or at least supported by whatever federal agency. So these are people, right? And humans, we make mistakes, right? So when I started looking into the blue and brown water presumptives, which is for Agent Orange folks, bless those men and women. A lot of them aren't with us anymore. They are, dying off, unfortunately, just because of the nature of time. But I looked at their presumptives, and if you look at some of those presumptives, it's 38 CFR 3.309. If anybody's interested in looking at the CFR, and I'm a bookworm, so there's that. So 38 CFR 3.309 goes over presumptives, and there's a whole list of conditions from ALS to spina bifida to the diabetes mellitus type 2, to AL, all kinds of stuff, right? Strokes, diseases, all these things are considered presumptive, which means the VA says that because of your service, if you have this ailment, this condition, then it's more than likely not due to your service, and we're going to give you compensation for it. When I saw that, and I saw when that legislation came out, do you know how many men and women have actually died from those conditions that were not properly compensated, and their wives and husbands were at homes thinking to themselves, something is not right. It's because of the military, but you don't have the statutory framework to be able to substantiate your claim with the VA because it's not there. And then lo and behold, here comes this new legislation where they said, oops, we made a mistake, we were wrong. All of these, whatever how many conditions, are because of military service. So there's some wife is at home, some husband's at home, like my spouse suffered from that, and they were not properly compensated. And then to even get compensation in real time is also another battle. That's why I noticed something wasn't wrong, wasn't correct. And then you fast forward to now, you have the Camp Lejeune water crisis. There's like 8 different cancers with that. That's also presumptive. Same run of a mill, right? A lot of men and women are at home. My dad went through that. My grandfather, my mother, my sister, aunt, husband, wife, whatever, niece, nephew went through this, and they weren't properly compensated. Then you go to my era, which is like the young people, right? I'm 40 years old, or 39. I'll be 40 here in a few months, and we're considered the young people because the Vietnam veterans, they're in their 80s, 70s, 90s, depending on when they served and what year they were born. But the young people now, which are the ones I would say under the age of, let's say, 55, are now dealing with toxins from burn pits, toxins from being in the Middle East, and now we're just getting compensated. But then I look at all the guys that I know personally that have passed away, and their spouses call me, "Hey, Chaz, like, what does this mean for so and so, that my husband or my brother that passed away, or my aunt or my niece, And so that's when I noticed that as humans, which work in the federal government, mistakes happen, unfortunately. It costs lives. But if I could do my small part to fix whatever's there, whenever legislation come out, then so be it, for seven principles, right? So that's why I knew things were not correct. I knew it from the beginning. And I think a lot of people, they argue over it and they have a big fit about it. But the thing is, I look at it like this, brother. These folks are men and women like you and I. They put on their pants the same way. They just have an authority to make a decision that's protected and shielded by the federal government. And you have to find a way to make sure that you get what's right for your family.
Yeah.
And that's where, folks like myself come in that just understand the system very well and take it for it is what it is.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and one of my really good friends, he has TBI, so he tells me all the time
hmm
the struggles he has with the VA, and it's just like, man, I don't know how you guys do it. Like, it's just a lot that goes into just trying to get help from the VA. So I can only imagine how much that puts on your plate too, for for the part that you have.
a lot. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you something crazy, bro. If you have a TBI claim, which is traumatic brain injury,
yeah,
and you have a mental health claim, and I will down this hill. Do you know that a lot of times raters, if you ask for an increase in one, they decrease the other? So let's say, for instance, if you have a 40% rating for TBI and a 70% rating for PTSD, and you say, you know what, I want to increase one of these two, right? Let's say, for instance, it's PTSD. You didn't ask for an increase, and even if you are eligible, you may end up getting an increase, which in this case would be the 100%, but they would decrease your TBI to 10. Or if you have 50 for PTSD and 30 for TBI, they'll decrease one or two. And I'm like, I never understood that.
yeah,
Even though, yes, these conditions do have some similarities, they don't have similar consequences.
right,
And so I've been on this hill for the last 5 years of why do you do that to veterans? And the thing is, it's so blindsided that most of them never see it come until the letter comes in the mail, and now they're losing, a few $1,000s or give or
right.
take, depending on where they are as far as ratings. So yeah, I'm sorry when you said TBI hit a nerve because our men and women that have TBIs, more likely than not, they were involved in some type of IED blast,
Right.
right? Some
Yeah.
type of trauma related incident that caused their head to be shaken beyond measure to where it caused a brain injury, a traumatic brain injury at that. Yes, it can stem to mental health, but the two do not actually, in my opinion, don't coexist, so to
Yeah.
speak. They're independent of each other and they have different consequences on the human body. So yeah, that's my hill I'm gonna die on, man. But I just always dislike that. And I have touched in my career, I would say I'm probably touching 35 cases that I have put my actual hands and eyes on, more so my eyes, because this digital work, right? But out of the 30,000 cases, I would say at least 3,000 of them, let's say 10% of them, there were decreases based on the notion that the veteran asked for an increase in one of those two conditions. If it was TBI, they're trying to decrease PTSD or mental health. If it's mental health, they're trying to decrease TBI. And then sometimes they will actually won't even give you what you do for the mental health. So yeah, that's a hill I'll die on. But I've always disliked that practice.
Yeah, it's like, you serve your country, and then it's just kind of like you get the shit end of the stick, pardon my language,
Right.
of the care that they give you. And I have another friend whose dad goes to the VA all the time, and it's a pain in the ass just to get insurance to cover his physical therapy. And it's just like, Jesus, man, like the system is so messed up. And like you
It
said,
is.
it's a bunch of people in suits that are making decisions protected by the federal government, and it's we can't really do anything about it. What we can
Yeah,
do is try and stand together and make sure that we make this right. But you know, it's
absolutely.
we meet our walls.
And I tell some veterans, like for me, I'm a veteran myself. Obviously, I use the VHA and VBA. I live here in Texas, and in
Mhm.
Houston, Texas, it takes me about 45 days just to get an appointment, and that's not with my PCP. I get that appointment. That appointment basically tells them which PCP I go to, and then it's another 45 days before I get an actual appointment, right? And so I had this issue recently. I had an issue with bursitis in my knee. I have very bad knee problems from just being in the military. I get 10% for it, this kind of thing, right? So I had really bad bursitis. I couldn't even walk, Chris. I had a band around my leg and I was putting ice on every single night. I was doing the whole rice thing or whatever, like rest, ice, compression, elevation. And I was in bad shape. I went up to the VA. I said, "Can I get this appointment? I'm in bad shape. 45 days." I went to the private sector, man. I went straight to the private sector. I was seen the same day. They gave me the meds I needed. They gave me the PT I needed as well. Even though I paid out my pocket, I was able to be seen. And so I tell some veterans, if you have the means financially and you can use your disability payments you get every single month to go on the private market, go do it. Because sometimes I don't think it's really bad people per se. I think the VA is just overwhelmed. Like there's 18 million veterans in the country,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
18 million plus, right? And that number grows every day as the military draws down, as people leave the military, et cetera, retire, ETS, or get put out. That number of veterans just keeps going. It keeps increasing, like our national debt. It just keeps increasing every day, right? So now we have 18 million plus veterans that are circulating, right? and they're living in big cities. I live in a big city. And so it's hard to get care. And
Yeah.
so oftentimes I'll tell men and women, hey, if you're going to live in Miami or Houston or LA or New York City, just forget about it. Just go ahead and have, if you live in those cities, you probably have some means somewhere. Go ahead and get the private care as well. Cause that's what we do in our family. We actually hedge it. We actually use the VA for like emergencies.
Hmm.
Like there are things that I'm service connected for. I go straight there for. If it's an emergency, I can get seen pretty quick. But if I can't get seen pretty quick, man, we have a private doctor, a PCP that we work with. We can actually text them through an app and we have an appointment next morning. So that's what I tell
Yeah.
people.
And, it's crazy that a lot of those veterans just aren't aware of those options too. So I can only
Yeah.
imagine how many are just struggling because they don't know that they could just do the private sector stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
they sure can. And it may help them out a lot. I think once veterans understand the numbers of how many of them are, how many of us are out there, and it's like going to university. A lot of universities, they really brag about, hey, we have a 2 to 30 ratio, right? For every 30 students, we have 2 instructors. Like you're going to be able to see someone, get help with your syllabus, get help with your assignments, etc. And I was in academia for a while, so I'm a bit of a book nerd, like I said. But veterans side the same way. 18 million plus veterans, you may only have 5 caretakers per every 100,000. That's a lot of caretake. That's a little bit of caretakers for a lot of people. So I think once veterans put it in perspective, the numbers of how many of them, how many of us are there, and how many of them are present, you
mhm.
got 5. You may only have 3 solid ones. The other 2 borderline. They may not want to actually work there anyways. The money's probably good, right? So they don't attend to your care. So once we come as veterans, and we as veterans, once we as veterans come to the conclusion that hey, we have to be selfish about our healthcare and about how to go about getting it, I think you have better results. You have less people getting upset. And then the ones that may not have the means to be able to have that private care, which we use Blue Cross. I think we use United Healthcare. So if we don't, if you don't have the access through your employer or through self pay or whatever you use, then of course the VA is your option. Just be aware that you may be sitting in for a wait, depending if you're
Yeah.
in a big city.
Right. Right. Um, the Seven Principles group has a pretty high success rate.
Yeah.
What's the secret behind that kind of consistency?
We decline 60% of the veterans that come to us for help. Unfortunately, that's just the real reality of it. I can't break it any other way. I can't be sad about it. It's a business decision. Think of it like this, right? Every deal we do, I can't say deal, every case, because I don't want to make it seem like we're doing deals over here, even though we
Right.
do deals on the finance side. I have a mortgage company, which are deals. I have a real estate investment company, which are deals. And then, of course, we have VA claims, which are cases, right? So for every case or claim that we do, we take an underwriting approach to it. And the underwriting approach is very simple on the VA claim side. Will a VA rater grant what they want? That's it. Will a VA rater look at what you want to request as far as an increase or service connection or appeal, and will they agree with it? And if the answer is no, we're very honest with the veteran up front that this is not going to work. This is a waste of your time. It's a waste of the VA's time, and it just won't work. And some of them disagree, and that's okay. They go somewhere else, and they get the same results because we're not going to let a case that we feel we're going to will help our reputation go out our doors. We've been in business for 11 years for a reason.
Right.
So the reason why we are such a high success rate is because the cases that we do select to work with, we know there's a high likelihood of us performing in that matter. And performance for us means plus 10. So if a veteran comes to us, the first rule is do the veteran no harm. The second rule is educate him or her. And the third is they want to work with us. We're more than happy to work with you. If you want to go somewhere else, we will tell you where you can go. There's free resources. You can do it yourself, DIY. You can choose an advocate of some sort. But here's our program. Here's what we've been able to do successfully over the last 11 years. And that is your choice as a consumer, whether you want to move forward or not. And so for those, we have a pretty cool thing that happens in the firm. When we get clients that when we select them as a client, we say, yes, we'll take your case on. They send these really cool emails like, oh my God, I'm so happy because they know that the likelihood of them getting success is extremely high because it's 98%. I think we're at 98.9. Now we dipped a little bit because whenever there's a change in administration between the White House, there's always a lag in cases for us.
Hmm.
And then cases get denied erroneously. It dips our ratings a little bit lower. And then we get it back on appeal though. So
Interesting.
that's the nature of business, man. I've been under, I want to say 4 presidents, Bush,
So let me
Obama.
ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
How does the person standing in office, how does that affect the percentage? Like I know you said it lags the cases. Like what role do they play in I guess the cases that you do or don't get?
The undersecretaries. No one knows who they are. So the
Hmm.
president picks a secretary,
Right.
and the secretary picks the undersecretaries. Those guys carry the division, and they hire the folks that are actually doing the job. So For me, I was at the VA. I was a GS9 when I got in, and I got to GS11 and then 12. My boss, who was at the time was John Shriver, he's an amazing guy. John was hired by some other folks, and that was just a whole chain of leadership from the undersecretary because we're in Washington D.C. We're making these policy decisions, and we also implementing new things that are happening. When leadership changes at the White House, it trickles all the way down. No
Mm.
one talks about that. They just think about, oh, it's a new regime, it's a new White House. Congress somewhat stays the same depending on what year the election is. And then, of course, you have your undersecretaries, your secretaries that change. All of them change. All of them are gone. Some stay, but most of them are gone because they were with the prior president's administration. If that president was not elected in the next election because of didn't seek reelection or lost election. So then those secretaries, they have a job. Their job is to deliver based on the president's views and opinions and positioning. They then hire undersecretaries, the folks you never really hear much about unless you really deep in the weeds. And those undersecretaries, they push that agenda. And a lot of times it's not very well, I guess, executed on the execution level. So, Chris, you and I, we have a big idea, right? We're going to go out here and we're going to provide free healthcare for veterans, right? Okay, great. Free healthcare, even on the private side. You go to any clinic in America, whether it's urgent care, whether it's a local hospital, and it's going to be free if you show your veteran card. Sounds great. You're probably going to win a lot of votes. Veterans are probably going to vote for you. But what happens in real time at these clinics is different based on what the vision was. Because now there's, okay, I'm gonna lose money somewhere. There's economics involved. There's positioning involved. For me to do this, now I have 10x more clients that are coming here. I need to hire 10x more people. I can't afford that, so things get lost. Things don't translate very well to how they're executed, and that's what happens. It's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of, imagine if you have a teacher and that's first period, and you go to second period and it's a different teacher. Same subject, different way to deliver the information, different way of executing the vision that the principal has at the school. Same exact dichotomy. That's how it works.
Interesting. Um, what role does education play in empowering veterans to claim their benefits?
It's a massive role. Yeah, if you're not competent, you shouldn't get into this business. I mean, you have to be. When I tell you, I literally, it's somewhere in my back of my shelf here. I literally took 38 CFR and read it word for word, page for page for 2 years. I committed myself to the business. I committed myself to being competent. So there's nothing that there's not very much that happens in the CFR that I don't already know about because I've done it in real time. So education is a massive part. And I'm online, I'm on Facebook like any other guy that's, hanging out 2 o'clock in the morning in the bedroom, right? I'm just in my bed, phone on my face, I scroll Facebook and I see all this misinformation. I don't say much because I just learned to just stay in my place. But yeah, education is a big part because, word travels fast. And in the veteran community, it travels very fast because each one teach one, each one reach one, right? So if Chris has some good ideas, you're gonna tell Chaz. I'm like, oh, Chris, that's a really good idea. I'm gonna take action on that, and I'm wrong, right? I see that happens. It's so frequent. It happens. And the funny thing is, as a group of executives at the firm, these 7 principals, we sit and look at some of this stuff, and we're like, we would never go out of business because they're going to go do this and they're going to mess their case up and they're going to come to us and we're going to fix it for them. We're going to always stay in business because we're competent. So education is a really big thing. And it's not necessarily just having education because a lot of people think, oh, I served in the military for 20 years and I have a master's degree in business. I can help veterans with cases. No, you can't. You have to be competent in that subject matter. You don't necessarily need to have a PhD in it or a master's degree. You just need to be competent in the CFR, particularly parts 3 and part 4. And that, to me, as far as education is concerned, is what makes you a really good asset to veterans because you will give them the right information. They can act upon it in the right way.
Right. So you had mentioned social media and misinformation. How heavy of a role does that play into what you guys do day to day? Because I know the misinformation in today's day and age with social media is really, really bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so for us, it doesn't play a role at all. We're very focused on our mission, very focused on the goal.
Like all facts, like everything, just like straight to
all fact. It's straight to the point. Because the VA business is a black and white business. There is no gray area to this. It's 100% fact. We're dealing with 2 federal projects, 2 federal initiatives right now. My mortgage company, you can't write mortgages unless you clear by the federal government. That's one thing that we're doing. There is no mix in that. The rates are the rates. The loans are the loans. You qualify, you don't qualify. Straightforward. VA claim is no different. It's a federal benefit. You qualify or you don't. It's black and white. There's no mixing the words. So for us, social media is a way for us to run ads, to be
Yeah,
frank with you, and a
sure.
way for us to connect with our colleagues and friends. And if you want to work with us, great, we're here. If not, that's totally your choice. But for us, we do not look at the clutter. We get comments on all of, if you look at our social media, we get, thousands, millions of views. You look at our social media, we get people in the comments, they're giving off their, oh, you could have done this, and we're like, no, that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Sometimes we will go into in our own comment section and we will say, hey, you may want to consider these options, and then we end up getting them as a client, obviously, because they know that we're competent. But for us, we're focused on the mission. It's straightforward. We got the blinders on. We're moving forward with our customers, making sure we take care of our clients, and anything on social media that's not under the seven principle umbrella, we look at it and keep it scrolling.
It's interesting everybody's different take on social media because either it directly affects them or don't. And I feel in the veteran community, like you were saying, a lot of information being on your comment section from other people who are just either misinformed or maybe just don't understand what I guess they're trying to figure out for themselves. So it's refreshing to hear social media doesn't have an impact on something because I feel that social media right now is just so full of muck that it's
Mhm.
hard to feel like it's hard to function sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we found our silver lining. I put it like that. We found our silver lining. We know it works for us, but we also are a more established business too.
Yeah.
We've been in business for 11 years. So, if you would ask me this 11 years ago, at year one, year two, oh, it's a really big deal. Like anything I put on social media, as soon as I get a comment on it, that's not like what I thought I was going to get. I'm thinking like, oh my god, like I didn't
Yeah.
just I didn't I'm gonna go to jail. Not saying I'm going to jail, but you get the point. Like
Yeah.
it's an egregious act. And so now we just been in business for so long where we just know our customers. We know what they look like. We know what they're going to say. We already know we're going to have people that don't like what we're putting out there. That's just what it is. But we have way more people that love what we do. So that for us puts us in the black, and we're operating in the black. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
You're going to have folks that are like, oh, you shouldn't charge. You should get it for free. Yeah, we tell folks there are free resources, but they come to us for a reason. They're paying us money for a reason. So yeah, we don't let the social media get to us. The only time we do consider things when we do have people that like mimic our pages. They will like make a whole mimic, especially on TikTok. They make a whole mimic of our page, and they will solicit veterans. That's when we get really upset about that, and we step in, take charge, work with TikTok to get things removed, as well as Instagram too. But that's the only time we really get involved with with any type of social media stuff is when people try to mimic us, or
Yeah.
when they try to copy our page, and we're like, hey, there's only one seven principles. We have a whole trademark with USPTO. We're pretty serious about our brand here. So yeah,
Yeah. Facts over feelings, right?
absolutely, man, all day.
um, um, so how do you define generational wealth in the context of veteran families?
Information. A lot of veterans go to the grave without ever telling their spouse what's going on. Like they never tell. They never say anything. So if you have a spouse, male or female, obviously, and they have never served in the military, never don't know much about the military, and you have all these benefits, and you never tell your spouse about that, I don't want to say shame on you, but like let's do better, guys and gals. Like let's do better, right? Because a lot of spouses are super clueless about what's going on, and we see it firsthand. I'm not talking about what I think or what I feel. I'm talking about facts over feelings. Like we have these spouses and dependents, daughters and sons and nieces sometimes that and nephews that come to us clueless about the benefits that they have earned from their husband, dad, whatever. So to pass on the generational wealth for veterans is information passing. You can't just pass on the money because the money's going to end because someone's going to die, and it's typically that veteran's going to die at some point because they're the one that passed on the wealth. So the first thing is information passing. How do I get my benefits if you pass away? What happens when you die? How are you buried in the National Cemetery? How does what your bank account look like? And then from there, being able to build something. As a veteran, we have a ton of benefits just to even start a business. So building something. I get a lot of veterans that I talk to, and they're like, "Hey, I'm battling my demons. I can't run a company, but I'd be a great employee." Great. At least build something to pass down. So generation wealth for me is in three pillars. One, information. What, who, what, when, where, and how. The second is building something. And the third is leveraging the laws in our country that give us as veterans basically an unfair advantage to those that are not veterans. There is no reason why you shouldn't own property, right? I tell every veteran, get a piece of real estate as quickly as you possibly can get one and get one for a reasonable price. There's no reason why you shouldn't start a business and have folks that that do construction work come work on the property you bought at a wholesale level. So now you built some equity. That's how you pass it down. You don't have to build a business. You can literally find a piece of real estate in anywhere: Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Texas, New York. It doesn't matter. Find a piece of real estate. It has some problems to it. Buy on a wholesale level. I even will go as far as getting your agent license as well, so you can reduce your fees, and then get someone to build, come inside and do renovation, that kind of thing. And then now you have equity in that deal. So when you pass away, you're passing on information. You pass on real estate that has equity. If the spouse wants to sell it, so be it. They have some money to walk away with and figure out a new life. And then third, you're able to leverage the American system in your favor. That's what I would say.
So my question on the information part is how do some of the veterans not know the benefits that they have? Like, how does that even happen?
It's the same like going to seek information. So, a lot of people, if you want to know something, you're going to find out, right? So let's take cheating, for instance. Everybody can relate to cheating because it's such a widespread information, it's a widespread deal, right? Your wife or your husband's at home and they're like, I don't know if my husband or wife is cheating. How would I find they're cheating, right? The first thing is that mobile device, the phone. So I go through the phone and I find what I'm going to find. I go to text messages, I go to social media, I go to hidden notes, etc. You find out what you want to find out. So a lot of times it's just you have to just be proactive and take the first step. And when you get hit with a brick wall, find a way to climb over it, go around it, or go through it. That's what it has to come down to. And a lot of veterans that we have empowered, we have the same conversation of the information is there. It's just a matter of just taking the time to look over it. You're not going to consume it in one day. It may take you a year. It really will take you a year to probably find some information out, depending on what you want to find out. So I tell veterans, the ones that don't know, it's because you chose not to know. The information is right there. We're in the world of Chat GPT, for heaven's sakes. Like you can literally go to chat and ask whatever question you have and then go down the rabbit hole and do that for as many times as you can until you're happy, right? So for me, I would say in today's market, it's because you haven't taken the proactive steps. I'm not saying they're lazy, but what I am saying is they have not taken the proactive steps to at least be informed and be knowledgeable. If you were asking me this, let's say 30 years ago,
Yeah.
it's because the information just wasn't readily available. It wasn't easy to digest, and it also was irrelevant to your specific needs. So the federal government or any information resource, whether it's federal or private, will come out with what they think veterans are looking for because that's what a lot of people said they were looking for. But for your specific issue, it's not there because they didn't cover that because not everybody is facing that. So you have to take what you can and kind of go from there. But I remember as a kid reading encyclopedias in the Britannica. So I mean, I still found information. So the rules still apply of if you want the information, you have to go out and find it and seek it. But in today's market, it's a lot easier than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the 30 years ago I can understand that part, but with everything as readily available as it is, I mean it's just crazy to me that there are still veterans that don't know the benefits even after serving. You would think
Yeah,
that I mean, I guess to your point of them just like turning themselves off to hearing that information about their benefits. I mean, I can understand that point. That makes a lot of
yeah,
sense.
yep, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's all a matter of whether you want it or not. It's how bad you want it, And I told one of our employees the other day, I said, your best ability is availability. How available are you? Are you showing up? And that's whether you come into work or job, whether you're showing up for yourself. So, folks that don't know about their benefits, that's okay. But if that is a problem for you, you have the 100% power to change it today, right now.
Yeah, right. So this is a question more so about not only the business, but just more for personal as well. What does success look like for you now compared to when you started? Because for some reason, or for some people, it's money. Some reason it's family. What does success look like for you now?
I'm gonna be very frank with you, not using a fucking alarm clock. Seriously. I tell the alarm clock story. Listen to this, brother. I tell the alarm clock story. And I have a bunch of folks that work jobs 9 to 5. They got to get up at a certain time and be in the car and be on the road or a bus or wherever they get to work, right? And I asked them, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? They say, oh, I go through my emails. No, 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 no. How do you wake up in the morning? Well, let me just pop. No, no, no. How are you awakened? Well, I use an alarm clock. How would it feel to not ever use an alarm clock? Chris, I haven't used an alarm clock since my military days. So I got out of the Army at 25. I'm 39. So do the math, right? Almost 15 years I have not used an alarm clock. And there are times within the last 15 years, there's been like one or two times where I've had to use an alarm clock because I need to like just be alert that, okay, I got to do this now because I get so involved in my work, I get lost. But success for me is I do not have to use an alarm clock because I hated alarm clocks growing up. I grew up in a very strict conservative Christian home. My
Yeah.
parents believed in alarm clocks, and thank you. I'm happy for that. It worked for me as an adult until I was about 25. But success for me is very simple, man. Not have to use an alarm clock. I get 7 hours of sleep every single night, sometimes seven and a half, and I wake up when I wake up. So people ask me like, because like people ask about this whole entrepreneur stuff. Like you get up at 4:30 and you run, and you put your ice in face, and you make up your bed. I don't do none of that shit. I don't make my bed. I don't run every morning. I get up when I get up, and I tell folks I get up +7. So whenever I go to bed, +7. If I go to bed at 3 a.m., I'm getting up at 10. If I go to bed at 11, it's +7. That's it. So yeah, that's success for me is not using a damn alarm clock.
That's probably one of the most incredible answers I've ever heard, man. Because I've heard a variety of answers, but that I think that's got to be one of my favorite answers, if not my. I use 3 alarm clocks every time to wake up. Like I just can't sleep because my anxiety is always going crazy,
Yeah.
and I just sitting there staring at the ceiling. And when I started to realize, I'm like, hey, maybe the background noise thing to go to sleep just isn't working out. So let's try shutting off the TV. First, I tried lowering the volume all the way and just having a light there just to go to sleep with. And I'm like, all right, this is not working out because I'm not sleeping because I'll roll over and I'm like, oh, let me watch the rest of this movie since it's on.
Hmm.
Um, I've started to shut off the TV and put my phone face down, and the alarms have been waking me up, but it's like not being able to have an alarm clock just blows my mind. Like sometimes I'll wake up before my alarms. I'm like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But uh, damn, man, not to have an alarm clock. That's
I
pretty.
mean, think about it. Once you remove that from your life, and for me, once I remove that, it just felt like such a because the thing is, right? My morning starts as soon as I wake up. Like that's my morning, whether it's 2 p.m. or whether it's 2 a.m. or whether it's 7 a.m. That's when my day starts. And I'm already agitated because I had to set this alarm, move it off. For me, I like starting off on the right foot. I know that's a cliche, but I actually do start off on the right foot. And for me, what works for Chad Sampson is being able to get up whenever the hell I'm getting up. And then the day starts from there. And that has really helped my mental health, because getting out the army, I got to the army at 25 years of age, and I was working in finance at a dealership, and that was a little bit more laid back of a field because finance is very laid back. It's all about like what you know, what you can produce. So I was able to produce a lot, so I just had a lot of leeway. And but I still was accustomed to using an alarm clock and get up at the same time. And so I was doing that, and I was like, well, wait a second, I don't really have to do that anymore. And once I stopped setting an alarm and just woke up whenever my body just naturally woke up, my body felt better. I didn't feel rushed. Some mornings you get up in the morning, you're so sluggish. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Like, because you had to get up because the alarm woke you up and I'm gonna go get this cup of coffee. And you slug around for an hour. I don't do that, bro. When I wake up, I'm hitting the ground. I'm literally running. Like you can ask my fiance and my kids. Like I literally wake up like so much energy, and I'm thankful for that, obviously. But the alarm clock, I had to get rid of it, man, and it works for me.
What's funny is this past weekend, I let my phone die for the first time in forever overnight. Didn't put it on the charger, and I slept the best I've slept in so
I
long.
bet say that you felt so good. I bet you felt
Yeah.
good.
Woke up at like 11:30. I'm like, bruh, I had an alarm set. What happened? And looked at my phone. It said 0. I'm like, wow. All right, I got to do that a little more often.
Absolutely. Do that more often. Absolutely.
um, another personal question for you, and also has to
Yeah.
do with business. How do you stay grounded and motivated in a mission-driven business?
Two things, right? I have two parties depending on me. I have one party that depends on me to feed their family, and one party that depends on me to find a solution for their problem. That's what drives me, honestly. I have a number of men and women that work at the firm, and every day they look up to me. I'm the sole owner of this company. I don't have any outside investors. I didn't raise capital for it. I literally bootstrapped it from the beginning. And I have all these men and women that work at the firm that depend on one man to make sure that they can take care of their family and put kids to school. I have seen kids that have come through the firm that the kids of like the staff members that their kids are in college now. Their kids are buying cars, their kids are buying houses, and it's just a blessing to see that. And so what I've been able to really do is be able to take people's skill set and pay them handsomely for it. And then that in return has created a level of brand loyalty to where we can continue to grow the business, and I can continue to reward them as well as we continue to grow the business. So that's the first thing. A lot of men and women depend on me to feed their families, and that to me is a huge honor. And when people come to me, when I get calls from like mortgage lenders and banks to verify they are an employee because it goes to HR, but sometimes they put my name directly because a lot of the staffers, a lot of the staffers I actually picked myself. I actually like put the job out there, interviewed them, so this is the person for the job, like hire that person. Let's bring them in, and then I have a relationship with them. Even though I may talk to them maybe once or twice a year, we still find a way to have love with each other. You know, like I'm not the CEO that's like, oh, I'm over here on a boat and like screw my staff. Like, no, I'm actually in the trenches too, bro. I'm working my ass off with y'all as well. I may not be doing the same exact thing, but I'm doing something very similar to help all of us be successful. So, um, that's the first thing is being able to see these men and women buy houses, buy cars. It tickles me to death when I see somebody buy a new house. One, they got home ownership, but secondly, it tells me that you trust the company enough that we're going to have enough capital in the bank to be able to afford payroll so you can continue to work here for the next, let's say 30 years, because most houses have 30-year fixed rate or maybe an arm, depends on the deal. The second one is the customer, the client. They chose of all these options. You got free resources, you got paid resources, you can do it your damn self, but you chose us to do your claim. And we're not the biggest shop on the block. We don't want to be the biggest shop, but we're the most effective. We're the most efficient. And so for someone else to talk to their family and say, yes, they are the people for the job. Like Chris, I kid you not. I just had a Josh email me, another agent. I'm buying a house right now, and it's a bidding war. I don't do bidding wars. I don't do that when I'm buying real estate. I want to buy a deal and leverage my license, my commission, so I can get a deal for cheaper and pay all the closing costs because I have a relationship with the title company, right? He emailed me back and says, Chaz, you're the best fit for the job. We want to work. I also want to work with you. And this is a good deal. This is a good deal, Chris. So for someone, and I say that because that's just fresh, that happened right before our call. For someone to say, I want to work with Chaz because he's proven himself as a leader, he proven he can get the job done. And I feel my chances are the best with him. That makes me perform even higher. Now I'm going to jump off the roof to make sure that I over promise, over deliver and under promise. So that's what it is for me, man. Those two things there.
I feel the most important part is whenever somebody just name drops you in any kind of conversation, especially with what you're doing, with what I'm doing. I think the most gratifying thing I've ever heard from somebody is that I saved their life. And
Mm,
when I first heard that, it was early on in my journey and telling my story and stuff. I'm like, I'm not sure I saved your life, but I appreciate the statement. I
yeah.
don't really understand how I saved your life. I just told my story, and when we kind of talked about it a little bit more, and she said that I helped her find her voice and tell her story, and
Mm,
she got on my podcast and told her story, and it was one of the biggest episodes for my circle of friends because it was a story that she's been holding back for 30 years
wow.
that she couldn't tell anybody. She didn't even tell a
Wow.
therapist that she formerly went to. And when you hear stuff like that, when you get emails like you got, man, I feel like it's like, you know what? This is why I came back. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And, you had mentioned your fiance and kids. And I really want to ask this question because I think
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to your answer. What is one important lesson that you try to teach your kids?
Have respect.
Yeah.
Have respect. It take you a long way. Have respect. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And build relationships. And so one thing I'm teaching my older, I have an 18-year-old, 13-year-old, seven. The seven, me and my fiance, that's her son. So that's my stepson now. And we have a newborn. His name is Chaz. He
Congratulations.
is, thank you, sir. I want to say let's say 50 days old. So he's almost 2 months old, right? September 4th, he'd be 2 months old. And the biggest thing I teach all my kids is one, have respect. You'd be surprised how many folks lose their life because they don't have respect.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised when people gain opportunities because they have respect. So have respect. Even if the person's position is different than yours, there's no reason for you to, feel like you need to fight them or be aggressive. We're not aggressive people. We're very laid back, but we're also not pushovers neither. We're kind of true Texans at this point. But the big thing is have respect. But the second I tell them is that school is built for relationships because a lot of people think school is, I gotta go get this degree. I have to go so I can get this job. Like the person that get the job is the person that get the job done, right?
Yeah.
Now, the entry in the doorway may take some grease of the wheel somewhere, or maybe a degree or two here and there. But you go to school for relationships because you'd be surprised how you can help someone and change their life just by having a respectful gesture. So
Right.
that's the biggest thing I teach my kids is respect, understanding relationships and building relationships, and managing their money.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, managing
You
their
know,
money.
I my daytime job, I work in the security field for IT, and I work with an offshore team in Manila. And
Okay.
when I first started working with them, I always say how grateful I am for them. Like, at the end of the month when we all just work their 16-hour shift, and if they're going on break, I'll say have a good break. And I started creating that habit, and the mood and the morale just started
Mm-hmm.
climbing up with them.
Goes up. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I made a point to even say to leadership, and I'm sure a lot of them got pissed off for me saying this, but I said, these guys are not robots. And I
Right.
said, I refuse to treat them like robots because every decision you guys make affects them more than it affects us.
Absolutely.
And I remember a VP was in the room just kind of giving me that glare when I said it. And I said, listen,
Mm-hmm.
we're all people. I don't judge a CEO and I don't judge a janitor, nor should you.
Right.
They're not any less of people than us because they live in another country and they're not based on US policies.
Right.
And I just feel like they take advantage of those people, and I hate seeing it. I
Yeah.
hate more than anything how they treat these offshore people. So when I started putting out that energy, now it started trickling down to my other team members that are US based, and they
Mm-hmm.
started treating them better. And
Yeah.
I remember one day I was having a really off day. I think it was probably my brother's anniversary or something, and I was really feeling off. And one of my team members had said, you're acting really off today. You're not your happy, cheerful self. And, they asked if I was okay. I'm like, I'm just, I'm struggling because, it's my brother's anniversary and I'm just having a really
Mm.
hard time coping today. And the entire team gave me that positive energy back.
Right.
And like you said,
Wow.
man, respect goes so far,
So far. Yeah.
so far. And
Absolutely.
sometimes the respect you show people that others are not might get some people rattled and pissed off. But
Yeah.
you know what? Eventually they start to come to that level. Like, you know what? You're right. They're not robots. They're just like you and me. They're just in
Yep.
another country. And
Yep.
I love that. That's one of the number one lessons you treat your kids, man, because I think respect
Absolutely.
goes so damn far.
I'll tell you a funny story happening today, actually. And this guy, he said it should be an Instagram post, which I actually may post on Instagram. So I have a few cars, but one car I do have is a Chevy C8 Corvette. It's
Mm-hmm.
red. It's your typical American dude Corvette. I have
Right.
these pipes on it. It's like brrr, sounds really loud. The other company, they failed to tighten some of the bolts on there, and GM found it. They were doing my oil change today. They found it and said, "Hey, look, you need to go back to wherever you came from and get them to fix this because the actual exhaust pipes are kind of hanging a little bit because the bolts aren't tight enough." So the guy I go to pay my bill for the oil change today, he says, "You need to go over there and be a Karen and cuss them out." I said, "What is that going to solve for me?" He says, "Well, you should at least, get your lick back and tell them they did wrong." I said, "It still won't solve anything for me." I said, "He's probably 20, 20, 21, 22, right? He looks super young." I said, "Let me share something with you that I've learned that worked well for me. You will attract more bees with honey than you will with vinegar. So why would I want to go over there and cuss these folks out? It would do me no justice. The problem is I have to trust them that they're going to do the right thing by my vehicle. And you think they're going to want to help me out anymore if I go over there and cuss them
Exactly.
out?"
Right.
And he said, be a Karen, which whatever that means. I said, there's no use for being a Karen. I'm Chaz. I'm just gonna go over and be the happy person I'm always am and say, hey guys, we got a little small mistake here. Let's fix it. So I took over there, they fixed it. I had to call the guy back. He's yelling through the phone. I said, Josh, give me the fucking phone. I take the phone, I said, hey, bees, honey, no vinegar. He was like, oh yeah, I didn't know you were standing there, man. I'm like, yeah, I'm standing. I can hear you through my phone because I had to call him back on my phone and give it to Josh
Right.
so he can. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing with two Joshes right now. One at Scream, and it's called Scream Auto Sports here in Katy. They're amazing, by the way, and they're good people, like most people are, I think. But yeah, it's the respect, and I don't think he was ever taught that because for him. He thought it was more than justified. I won't say his name for the sake of the show, but he thought it was more than justified to go over there and cuss these people out because it is a big problem. Like to have a car that expensive with an exhaust that's hanging
Sure.
a little bit with the bolts that are not loose, that's a big problem. The car goes super fast. I can easily lose the whole exhaust
Yeah.
system because it's not tightened very well. But God has blessed me. There's no problem with the car. It works well. It sounds good. So we'll just go back over there and they just figure it out. If it was worse than that, we still just figure it out. But I wouldn't go off the rim. So you're right. Respect, it goes a long way. I've been blessed to be, a respectful man since I was a little boy. My
Same.
parents were really big on that. Like I would literally get smacked in my mouth by my parents if I did anything disrespectful, especially to another adult. To another kid, my parents were, "Hey, Chaz, calm that down." But I learned very early on. I would say probably like when I was like 2 or 3. Like respect is like it's you give it automatically. People lose your respect. You lose your respect, but you never lose your temper over it. You never
Yeah.
lose your physical being over someone that's being disrespectful, and you just cut ties and keep it quiet and move your way and don't be disrespectful. So
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I love that. So I usually alter this question for every guest that I have. So this question I wrote down specifically for you. If you could
yeah,
change one policy or regulation today to better serve veterans, what would it be?
That's a deep one. One policy. I wasn't thinking about this one. One policy that would help them. I probably would change. I mean, off the top of my head, I probably would change the PCP requirement because you have to have a PCP to be able to be seen at the VA. So for us, I still, and just me being vulnerable here, I still PCS. I don't know what it is, bro, but PCS is permanent change of station, and it's basically go from one location to another. Like I still move around a lot. I'm stable here now. I plan to be here in Katy. I'm in Houston, Katy area. I plan to be here for at least 10 years, but I'm also thinking about like I'm ready to move already. And
Right.
I lived in LA, Seattle, DC, Virginia, I lived in New York, I lived in Miami. So I've lived everywhere all across the country. And I like to move around. I like just be up. Okay, we're gonna go here today. I take the whole family. We're gonna move here. We're gonna buy a house. We're gonna build a business there. We're gonna do everything we can, and it's just fun. But now I'm a little older. I moved here to Texas. Actually, I just moved. I haven't been here for a year. October make 1 year that I've been here in Texas, but I plan to be here forever. This is my forever home now.
Yeah.
But when you do move around like that, it's hard to get care,
Yeah.
especially at the VA. So you have to reestablish care, and which is that's their policy. It's okay, but it does cause a little bit of a problem because to see a PCP, it will take forever sometimes to get a PCP appointment. So I would have it to where it's like the urgent care centers where you can just kind of walk in. You have a veteran's card, you just get seen for whatever ailment it is, and then you can use. I think it's called Capri. Is an internal system where records are seen by um accredited individuals, not accredited, but like physicians, people that have a reason to see the documents. They can be
Right.
able to see the information through the system if you put your social security number in, that kind of thing. So that would be one policy I would change. But another policy I also would change on the entrepreneurship side is I would like it to be like a set amount. And I was ranting about this last night, bro, to my fiance, to Talia. I said, babe, if I can change one thing in the world, I would change payroll tax. So payroll tax, I didn't know how expensive it was until I started having like 10 or more employees. But for payroll tax, it continues to increase as you continue to hire. So basically, as you continue to do well as an employer, you still pay payroll tax. And when I tell employees, I'm like, hey, we got this is payroll costs. Like this is what your check is. Let's take one person's check, right? Let's say your check is 3 grand this pay period. It will cost me like $4,500 to pay you. Even though you see 3 grand gross and then some taxes get taken out, it costs me more. But yeah, payroll tax, man, you can't not pay it because if you don't pay it, it's evasion.
Yeah.
I learned that a few years ago. I was talking to our accountant. I was like, hey, how can I not pay that? Like, should I just write personal checks? She's like, you can write them a check. But at some point, the government's going to catch you
Yeah.
because you're avoiding payroll tax and people evade it a lot. And it's not avoiding, it's evading. I'm like, oh, that's criminal. I don't want to do that. No, no,
Not
no, no,
trying to get into
no.
that.
Not trying to get into that. So we're just gonna keep paying payroll tax. But yeah, if I could add to that to the question, if I can like change that policy on payroll tax
Yeah.
and make it to where maybe it's like a flat rate. If
Hmm.
you got 10, 20 employees, is this, you got 20 to 30 is that, or whatever. But it just keeps getting more and more and more expensive to hire people
Hmm.
because payroll tax is not, it's a variable rate, it's not fixed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So before we get to the closing quote to close out the podcast, where can our listeners find you on socials?
Yeah, if you Google my name, Chas Sampson, that's CHASSAMPSON, everything comes up. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't have a Twitter or X now, but yeah, you have more ways to get in touch with me. I will add a disclaimer, small disclaimer. If you call about VA claims up, you will get directed to the website because I don't want to interfere with my staff. They actually do an amazing job of making sure cases are coming in and going out properly. And if a CEO is involved with that, it just muddies up the whole process. But for listeners out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying the podcast as well. But you can find me on Google, Chas Sampson, that's CHASSAMPSON.
Awesome. So at the end of every podcast, I like to read a motivational quote or a mental health quote based on the subject. Before I read mine, do you have any closing words that you have for the listeners?
Nah, man, I think I've said a lot already. You're way better than I am, Chris. Yeah, so that's all you, brother.
So this quote comes from the Jacksonville Veterans Disability Services, and it reads, "Heroes are not made by medals or accolades. They are forged through courage, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to protecting the freedom we hold dear. To all veterans, your service embodies the true meaning of heroism, and your valor will forever inspire generations to come."
That was good. I was over in T. I love it. Love it.
Chaz, thank you again for your service. Thank you for your
My
time.
pleasure.
Um,
Yes.
for all my listeners, thank you as always for your support. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves and much love.